Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I would like to acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory within the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Ron Merritt. I'll be your chairperson this afternoon, and introducing the panel members. To my left is Mr. Jeff Peich, and to his left is Mr. Ed Sawatsky, representing the City of Winnipeg from the Assessment Department, Jonathan Spacek, and recording secretary is Belen Rojo. We'll be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we'll limit discussions to those matters. The statements that the applicant or the assessor make at the hearing are sworn testimony, and anybody speaking in these matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it, along with the city administration. We make our decisions based on the evidence provided at the hearing and issue a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision in respect to application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. In respect to the hearing this afternoon, I'll confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions and the other applicant may have, and then will be the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each party will have the opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application is brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket this afternoon. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private to make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. We'll ask our secretary to swear in the assessor.
Please state your full name.
Jonathan Spacek.
And you swear to and to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Thank you.
Okay. The first order of business is 301 Notre Dame Avenue. So we're not going to have Mr. Follinger sworn in because he's not going to be making any presentation. So Mr. Spacek, there's a recommendation on this property, and you can read the roll number and etc.
I'm sorry, if he's sitting at the panel, we have to swear.
Okay, swear him in, please.
Please state your full name.
Thomas Gordon Follinger.
And you have sworn to and to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, so you can read the roll number and take us through the property with the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're looking at roll number 1306-0046-000 through Notre Dame Avenue. This is the Town Cinema located downtown. The 2020 assessment was $2,395,000, and my recommendation is to lower the assessment to $1,348,000. This is strictly a reduction in rent over the full square footage of the property, and that reflects market rent for a bowling lane. This is a single-use type property, pretty rare. Tough to find net rents, but the ones I have and the actual performance of the property dictate lower rent on this one as well.
Mr. Follinger, are you in agreement?
The applicant is in agreement, and I have two purposes for appearing before the board today. Number one, I really publicly and on the record want to acknowledge the city assessor. He's done a very thorough job, and notwithstanding that there is a substantial reduction, it was a hard-fought and very cordial relationship. So I do want to commend the city assessor. I know they get bad press a lot of the time, but I think Mr. Spacek deserves the kudos. The other is just to ask the board to ensure that our mailing address on the decision is changed. I think when the appeal was made, we were still located at 240 Kennedy, and our current address is Suite 900. 444 St. Mary Avenue. And that's R3C 3T1. Mr. Chairman, those are all my matters.
I thank you, Mr. Follinger.
Thank you.
Any questions from panel members at all?
I have none.
Good? Nothing. Thank you for your appearance, Mr. Follinger.
It's a pleasure. It's always good.
And thank you, Jonathan.
Take care. Yeah.
We'll get Mr. Becker sworn in.
Full name. You swear to give 95% to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Mr. Becker, you have noted 3 points of appeal.
Yes, the property is actually city campus, so there's a portion of it that's totally exempt because it's used for school, and then there's a portion that's taxable that's a for-profit daycare. My position is that a larger portion should be exempt. So I took everything off,
Okay.
just I want to make sure we were covered.
All right. So how do we proceed here in regards to, do you want to do quantum first, or do you want to do the others first?
Actually, it's kind of there in conjunction.
In conjunction?
Once we get to quantum, then it's a percentage of how much is exempt and how
Okay.
much is not. So I guess classification isn't an issue.
Okay.
So really, actually,
Yeah.
there is an exempt portion, so I'm not even sure of liability. It's just the amount of liability, which is basically quantum.
Okay. Then we'll, Mr. Spacek, you can take us through the property and we can deal with everything at the time. So the floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're looking at roll number 12015339100. This is 870 Scotland Avenue. We have a 2020 assessed value of $1,784,000, and that is split between exempt and taxable. So there is a 45% portion of the property that is exempt. That's the $851,000 at the top line under assessed value, and we have 55% of the property at $933,000 that is taxable. And again, one is, as Mr. Becker said before, one is for profit and one is a exempt daycare. So that's the difference. That's why there's a difference between exemption and taxable. This is a daycare labeled parcel. It was built in 1970 with an effective year of 1970, so we have no major upgrades on this property. We have a gross floor area of 14,018 square feet with a leasable area of 14,018 square feet. This is a fully owner-occupied property, and that's why we use the full gross area of the property as the leasable. You can see on page 2, I've included a picture that shows exactly where it is with a leasable. You can see it backs onto Grant. Page 3, you can just see the picture of the land where the playground is at the bottom, and you can see a picture of the front of the building, the Montessori Academy at the top. Page 4, they've always complied with our request for information. There was apparently a corporate restructuring or reorganization in August 2015, and that's what the sale was for. So it's, from my understanding, a non-arm's length sale, so I'm putting the weight on it. Page 5, you can see the first income stream for this property. I didn't do a blended. What we have, this is under the taxable portion. We have 6,296 square feet, which is area split between the first and second floor at $10.55 a square foot. And then we have the basement at $7.88, and the basement is a finished basement, has a pool, utility room down there. It actually has a swimming pool in the basement. That's what that part of that 1,170 square feet is at that $7.88. So give me 1 second. Our total blended rate for this portion of the building is $10.13 a square foot. We use our standard OFS parameters for these types of properties, and so that for the 2020 cycle, that's a vacancy loss of 5.5%, expenses at 2%, shortfall at $7, and an overall capitalization rate of 7.2%. That's where you get the taxable portion of this property at $933,000. And if you turn to page 6, the remaining portion of the first and second floor that is considered use for the actual daycare is 6,552 square feet. $10.51 is model driven for that portion of the property. Using those same parameters, you get 851,000. So the smaller square footage, you get a slightly smaller value, and that's, you add those two together, you get a total value. I think regarding the exemption issue, it'll be up to the appellant. But when we did our review in 2016, I think we spoke with Mr. Becker, and it was 55-45, and something may have changed. I looked up permits, I looked up in our online viewer for any like 311 calls sent in, and there's nothing sent to us about a change in use of space or anything, so I had nothing to go off of for why it would be a different percentage now. But again, that, from my understanding, we have to Mr. Becker to explain and prove. But so we're just using our standard that we had going forward the last 2 cycles, which is that 45-55% split. On page 7, I have included 5 daycare comparables. So there aren't that many net rents for daycares, but the one I have found are pretty similar to the subject property. You can see they have a range in years built on page 7 from 64 to 88. Our subject property was built in 1970. These are located across the city. The first one is very similar in the sense that it's a standalone 1-story building. Our subject is 2 stories, but it's a standalone building outside of the school. 1120 McPhillips. You have 1964, 8,000 square feet at 915, and then the rest of our properties you have ranging from $12 up to $17 a square foot. But the 2 largest ones are my first 2 comparables. You can see they range from $9.15 a square foot up to $14.23. Our subject properties are on the $10 mark, and I believe Mr. The appellant's rent is close to ours, but still asking for a different amount. But those are the comparables. If you have any questions about those, let me know. And just going forward, page 9, I will just point out our cap rates are driven from the OFS property type, but as a daycare, it looks like they have been modified to be slightly higher than an OFS category. We only show the actual OFS ranges on here on page 9, but if you take the 4th row from the top, you have suburban B OFS, you have a range of 5.5 to 9.05 across the whole city, and we actually range from 6.2 to 7.3 if you take out those outliers of the lowest 20% and the highest 80%. So our 2020 for our 2020 cycle, the range of cap rates was between 6.2 and 7.3%. Our subject property today is at 7.2%, just to show you where it is within that range of OFSs. And page 11 is the actual mailer sent in by the owner. He has checked off it's fully owner occupied. He sent in the expenses. He's claiming he's put 10,034 square feet. And I don't know where the difference comes from for us or where it has in the past where that's changed, but he's reporting a lower leasable area, but we put the whole building as it is owner occupied, the whole gross floor area. And page 15 going forward is our addenda. If you have any questions on that, let me know. That is my presentation today.
I thank you. Mr. Becker, questions?
No, actually, no, I don't.
Okay. Mr. Peich?
No questions.
Mr. Sawatsky?
No questions.
Okay. So, Mr. Becker, the floor is yours.
Okay, page 2, my report. Basically, it's like, as much as Patrick says, 1970 building. It's part 1 story with some basement space, and part 2nd total floor area is 14,018. The 55% that we had used in the past was based on the gross area of 14,018 square feet. That was what we were using for the percentage. What the owner puts down of 10,034, I have a piece of paper I can show it to the panel if they like, which kind of shows where the owner comes up with his percentage.
Well, you're under oath, so I don't think you listen to anybody you want
I'll
to
kind of
say.
go through it as I go
Okay.
through my agreement.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're asking for basically is the value to be changed from 1,784,000 to 1,519,000, and our split is different between taxable and exempt. So if I turn to page 3, subject property is the daycare / school facility located at 870 Scotland. Property was constructed in 1970. The basement area is 1,170 square feet and includes a swimming pool, mechanical room, and laundry room. The main floor is 9,100 square feet and contains classrooms. The second floor is 3,748 and contains classrooms and a music room. The subject houses mini school daycare, infant to age 2, and Montessori Academy, which is ages 2 to 5. and Winnipeg South Academy, which is junior kindergarten to grade 4. 68% of the property is school occupied and should be exempt. The other 32% is occupied by a for-profit daycare and should be taxable. If I could ask the board, I'll try to explain where the square footage is coming. If I could ask the board to turn to page 17, I'll be referring to 17 and 18. Page 17 is the main floor, and you'll see there's room 5, 6, 7, 8, room 1, and 9 and 10. Those are all classrooms, and part of it is used by daycare, part of it is used by school. But the front portion, which would be on the left of the sketch, which is reception and staff and all that, that's common area that is shared by both the school and the daycare staff. The reception area is in the front, so it's not strictly school, it's not strictly daycare. And then if we go to the second floor, page 18, you'll see that there's room 2, 3, and 4, and the music room. The music room is shared by both the daycare and the school portion. So where we come up with the 10,034 square feet is that the school portion is, on the main is rooms 1, 8, 9, 10, and then on the second is room 2, 3, and 4, and then there's the music room. So that equals 6,818 square feet. If you take that divided by the total floor area of all the school area, it works out to 68%. That's why Joe is reporting the 10,034. So what he's saying is the school is the 6,818 square feet, and if you divide that by the 10,000, which is area that is occupied just by school and daycare, it works up to 68%. And then the balance, the other 32%, is basically common area. They share the pool, the reception area, the staff lounge, etc. So that's where we get our 68% from, and the 32% for taxable. So if I can now go to page 5. Okay, a slightly different rents than that used by the assessment department. The comparisons I have on page 5, or I have property on Travanche at 1014, that's a main floor rent at 10. I have one to 1313 Border, main floor space at $10. I have a property at 3025 Portage, it's $9 on the upper floor. Then I have the next 1, 2, 3, 4 are main floor spaces on Wellington and on Portage and on Border Street, and these range between $10.84 and $12. And then I have another upper rent at 3025 Portage, and that was at $9. And then I have another main floor rent at $11 on Border Street. So what I've done is at the bottom table, I've applied $5 to the basement space, $10 to the main, and $9 to the second floor. So I come up with an overall rent of $9.32. Setting vacancy on page 6 as the assessor, same shortfall rate. We're using 7% not recovered, and we're accepting the cap rate set by the assessor at 7.2%. Our summary is on page 7. So using our overall rent, we have a potential income of $130,582, 5.5 vacancy, 7% non-recoverable, $7 shortfall, 7.2% cap rate, and we come up with an overall value rounded of $1,519,000. Then if I apply the 68% for the school, I'm saying that $1,033,000 of that should be exempt, and the balance for the daycare 32% at $486,000 for a total of $1,519,000. And that's my presentation.
I thank you.
I guess I can make one more statement. The $1 million sale in 15, it was actually based on an appraisal that was done in December of 14 that came in at $986. So it was, Mr. Levine was selling his company, his business to a company, and everything. So still owner occupied, but there was an appraisal that backed up the sale. That's it.
I thank you. Mr. Pochak, any questions?
Just a quick question for clarification. I think I understand what you're saying. For the space, so the daycare and the Montessori school, they run at the same time.
Yes.
And then so that you're saying all that front space is being shared between the both of them.
Yeah.
So you're considering a common space under the exempt?
And the pool area is also common space.
Yeah, common space under the exempt, okay.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the space is split up between the two, like the Montessori uses a certain portion and the daycare uses another portion?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I think I understand that. And then, yeah, so it's just kind of yeah, okay. I think I understand how the building is laid out. Thank you. That's all my questions.
I thank you. Mr. Peich, questions?
The comparables you've offered on page 5, are those the best properties?
It's hard to find like OFS buildings in this kind of age range.
Yeah.
The one on Provencher 487, I can't remember which building this is actually. It says small 2-story building, I think, an older building, built in 1929, so it's an older building. The one on Border is the corner of Border and Dublin.
Dublin.
Yeah. So it's quite a large complex. You got one 3-story walk-up office building in the front, and then you have some 1-story office buildings. So that one I thought was very good. The one at 1780 Wellington is quite superior to the subject. It's at the corner of Wellington and King Edward. Just if you're turning on towards the airport.
Yeah.
And the one on Portage, 1871 Portage, the same vintage, 3025 Portage. That's a mix, I think, of office buildings, plus there's a parkade, et cetera there. So they're ones that I thought were relevant.
Were there other properties that you had identified that you excluded based on net rent per square foot?
It could be net rent per square foot, could be the date of the lease, could be the area.
Yeah.
If you punch it, like say in our database, you could punch in an office space in this range and you'll get thousands, but
Yeah.
whether they match or not, our leases go back to 08, I think so.
Okay. Other questions?
I thank you. Mr. Sawatsky?
NOI, big difference between the assessor and you.
That would be for the difference in the rate, the
Yeah.
rent, and the 5% for non-recoverables. The assessor's using 2 and we're at 7.
Any comments on the 2 and 7 that you want to make?
I can go through our non-recoverable study if you like, but it's basically we've been of the opinion ever since we started to do appeals of 18 that there is additional costs other than just management and structural that the owners are responsible for.
Okay.
If it went vacant, they would have to pay somebody to lease it out. There may be some changes to the building, et cetera.
Thank you. No questions.
Mr. Becker, just to highlight some, the class code 40 is based at the square footage and 68%?
The overall value at 68%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And that's based
But
on
it's based on the square footage also?
Yes, they occupy 6,818 square feet, and we're saying total classroom space is 10,034 square feet. And that the balance of it is, well, if you can even see on the sketches, there's storage, there's staff rooms, there's reception area.
Okay. I thank you. Summation, Mr. President?
Not
Mr. Becker?
Well, I should say something about the good job they thought of.
If you want.
That's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming this morning or this afternoon, and results very soon.
That was quick.
I understand Colliers are on their way. That's what I hear. So why don't we shut down the camera and we'll have a little rest.
Oh, do we? Yeah. In a way. I have something, yeah.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. We'll affirm Mr. Newfield.
Please state your full name. You recommend the evidence to represent the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. He's gonna get a free one.
Okay.
I'll find big hands at the door.
So we're going to go to 3401 Rockland Boulevard. And Mr. Assessor,
Thank you, Mr.
whenever
Chair.
you're ready.
Roll number 0100930900. This is 3401 Roblin Boulevard on the corner of Roblin and Hendon. We have a 2020 assessment of $1,532,000. This is a two-story office building built in 1973. It has a gross floor area of 10,150 and a leasable area of 10,150. You can see on page 2, I've put a location, I've put an aerial view. You can see the building where it sits on the corner of the lot and the parking around it. Page 2 is a street view of the property. Page 3, you just get all angle picture to see the size of the building and the back where the parking is. They've always complied with their request for information. They sent in a mailer for the May 17th sale in 2016 for $1,850,000. That included that in the back. We have page 5, our income workup for this property, 10,150 square feet at $12.15. This is all model driven. It is using our standard OFS parameters. We have a going down 10,150 square feet, 5.5% vacancy, 2% expenses, $7 shortfall, and 7.2% capitalization rate. Page 6, I've put together some comparables along Roblin. It's a long street, but some of the best comparables I have on here is the first comparable, 3,317 Roblin Boulevard. This is a one-story OFS. That's just a couple buildings over. 3,000 square feet, 3,600 square feet on the main floor for $14 square feet. Our subject is built in 1973. The comparable is built in 1976. Our subject is 10,000 square feet, so it's a smaller portion of that size of 3,600 square feet. Some other offices down Roblin, 6,010 Roblin is comparable number 2. You have $14 a square foot. And I've included some retail, as there's not that many OFS actually on Roblin, but I've looked up trying to keep it as close to similar office space as possible, even if it's in a strip area, it's a lawyer's office or an accountant's office. It's those sorts of comparables. And then comparable 89 is a strip. So we have it very close by at 3536, so this is just across the street down a bit, a 1975 build, and you have rents ranging in there for 1,000 square feet from $1,149 to $1,350. So you can see that market range of rents in the area. All my comparables together is a weighted average of $1,444. Page 7 is just the income workup again. Page 8 is our capitalization rate sheet. Again, this is an OFS property, suburban office. We have suburban A and B, but they have the same amount. So the third and fourth row down, if you look at suburban A, you have a range of 5.55% to 9.05. If you take out the 20th and 80th percentile from our model, you get all of our OFSs rated at 6.2 to 7.3%. Our subject property is based on 7.2%. It is at 7.2% this cycle. You can see that's on the high range of our OFSs. Page 10 is the mailer sent in by the owner of the property. You can see there's a net rent in place for this property. We have 10,096 square feet. You see the total rent garnered is $126,155 a year. And if you turn to page 12, you can see the tenant sheet where they fill out the WRHA as the tenant. They have a 10-year lease starting in 14 for $12.49 a square foot. This is a net lease in place on page 12. So the actual rent in place is $12.49. Our model is coming in at $12.15, just under that. Page 14 is the sales questionnaire. It was filled in 2016. You can take a look over it. It's showing as a total sale price correct of $1,850,000. Was this an arm's length sale? It was checked yes. Going down, question 5 is, was there a market appraisal done?
Sorry to interject here.
Yes, of course.
That's an opinion of value.
Pardon?
That's an opinion of value.
An opinion of value?
Yes, it is. And that's somebody else's work.
Yeah, sure. An appraisal was done.
Well, you can say an appraisal was done, but you can't quote an appraisal without the written permission.
No, I'm not presenting any of the appraisal here. I'm just presenting what the owner.
That's an opinion of value. That's private copyright of the owner, and possession does not give you reliance. So I'm just going to object to the number. That's all.
That's fine. Object. I'm just I'm presenting what is sent into the city from the owner. This is a questionnaire we asked them to fill out. They filled out the amount of the market value appraisal on this page. You can object to it for sure. I'm saying the value. This is what the owner filled out, and it's matching the sale price. Going down, no odds of nothing included in the sale. There was a full lease in place for the whole building. If you go down to the bottom, what is the condition of the building? Very good. But again, the standard questions we send, page 15 is just the rest of it. Again, they fill out the income and expense information. They say, was this tenant, or if you go to number 31 down the middle, was part or all of this property tenant occupied? Yes, that's the tenant that was in place. So the 10-year lease was in place when they bought it. Was the purchase price based on a property's net operating income? Yes, and they actually filled out the capitalization rate of 6% at the time of sale, and then they didn't include any other financials. So that's on page 15 there, just information from the sale that they sent in to us for the 2016 sale. And then page 16 going forward is just a standard addenda I've included. If you have any questions with the property, please let me know. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Newfield?
As on the subject of the sale, who's the vendor?
The vendor on page Pembina Trails School Division.
Correct. And the tenant is WRHA.
Winnipeg Regional Health Authority.
And of course, both of those are government agencies.
Yes, absolutely.
And you are aware that the IAAO speaks to reliance on sales involving government agencies not to use them?
I mean, it can be, you don't have to use sales, like the IAAO can recommend, we're not bound by the IAAO.
No,
we can look at a sale how we'd like.
You are if you say that you follow them, which you say in your work.
I'm saying we follow the ratio study for sure, and we use it as an example, but we're not bound by it.
No, but they say you shouldn't use them for ratios.
Yes, and if there is a sale, to investigate it more if you're going to use it, absolutely.
Okay. All right. But in this case, you didn't rely on it anyway, did you?
No, we're 300,000 below the sale price.
You're relying on the income approach?
That's what we're presenting, because the model is doing the income approach.
And the workup, as indicated on page 5, is all from the model?
All model driven.
And your rent comparables, did you select these?
I selected these, yes.
Okay. And sorry, I have a question. It just slipped my mind here. Stop laughing at me. Oh yes, have you inspected the building?
I've never been in this building.
Now, WHA is paying the lease, but is there anybody in the building?
I don't know if it's vacant or if they're actually in there. I just know that the tenant is in place and the amount that's reported by you.
Hypothetical question, if a building is empty, but someone's paying the rent, is it vacant or is it not vacant?
In my eyes, in my opinion,
I don't know, what's the policy in the assessment department?
this is not vacant.
Because they're paying the rent, but if they're not in there.
Yes, if they're not in there and there's no rent, that would be vacant. If they're receiving rent and they're looking, say, for a subtenant or something, or there's right, it's still, the owner is receiving pay, it's 100% occupied
I'm
for 10 years.
just wondering if that's generally the way the assessment department.
That's how I'm looking at it.
Okay.
I'm not sure what our theory is, but
Okay.
I imagine if there's a 10-year lease in place, from my understanding, 10-year like.
No, we're not disputing there's a lease in place. And I can tell you that.
So I'm saying it's not
WHA
vacant
paying
based
the
on
rent.
that lease in place.
But last we checked, there's nobody in it.
If it could be physically empty of them, but they're paying a 10-year lease, so I.
Physically empty, you still consider it, the
I
assessment
consider it
department considers
occupied,
it?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Those are my questions, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Peich?
I have that.
Mr. Swatsky?
I think all the questions I had have been answered, although the one question I do have is in respect to the new roof, but I think that's probably better answered by Mr. Conn.
Okay. Mr. Spacek, what can you tell us about the sale? I mean, you did
Just
investigate.
what I went over on the sheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that.
I don't know
Okay.
the details between the Pembina School Trails and this 3401 Robin Boulevarding. Again, just what's reported here.
And it's all model driven in regards
Yes.
to the cap rate and
Yes.
the rents, etc.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Newfield, the floor is yours.
Thank you. See, I wasn't going to burden the board with all sorts of extra rebuttal stuff, but I did have that thing about the IAAO and relying on sales involving government agencies. And this is rebuttal, but it's for the purpose of assessment. It's something that generally should be avoided, unless, as the assessor says, you do a great deal more due diligence to look behind it. In our case, I'm working for the tenant, and we don't know, we don't care what it's sold for. they were originally had leased from Pembina Trails as it was surplus to their needs, and at one point it was providing healthcare services, and now it's vacant because with the access centers and the change in healthcare, there was thought of, I think at one point, having it being a quick care, but that policy I think has changed. And when the new access center opened up, I believe it's the one on Booth, would it be its territory, it became redundant. So as we know, all we know right now is it's still empty, and they're looking for a repurposing of it. And the issue is the problem, I don't know, they're not sure if they're going to hang on to it or not. Like if you repurpose and put a new user in there for the healthcare, and it's for the short duration of the remainder of the lease, it may not be the wisest move. So our healthcare system is, on the real estate side, is proceeding along very smartly these days. Nothing to do with provision of healthcare services. The real estate side has been running very, very well. And unfortunately, this is surplus to their needs, and they're obligated to do it. I don't think it's on the sublet market because the decision hasn't been made. So the rent is what it is, and I think we basically have the same rent in place applied to this. $1,000 off, so $2,000 off, I'm sorry, so there's no big deal there. We're using a higher vacancy rate, and this is from the Johnson report, and the page 6 shows the number. What we're using is the suburban inventory. You can see that Johnson has some breakdowns in the suburbs, and that's the bottom part of it, A, B, C, and then government, medical, and miscellaneous. Now, calling something medical is a bit hard to identify. You can see that rate is slightly lower than the miscellaneous and the overall rates. But the inventory, to give you an idea of how sketchy the inventory is, page 9 shows how big the inventory is. There are 7 buildings in the medical category, so they total 55,000 square feet. So the sample size is just not large enough to rely on it. I guess we clipped off the miscellaneous because this building would be in here on the miscellaneous. It's certainly not a good quality building. It's in basic condition. The cosmetics are fairly basic right now, so it does need some money spent on it for any user who's going to go in there. But why would anyone care when you have a lease? An owner, I should say, wouldn't care. So that's why we're at 6.6%. We do apply non-recoverables at a rate of 5%, and that's based on our study in the back. And these are Collier's managed properties. This is an analysis. And page 47, the last page, shows how we came up with our conclusion. Basically, investment properties always have non-recoverables, and they go higher in places where there are high vacancies and cash vacancies, and the owner has to put out more money and turnover costs. So where you see the numbers hitting 30%, usually there are repairs required on turnover, commissions to be paid, and costs like that which can't be passed on to tenants. But we're not relying on the ones at that end. We're looking for stabilized, and the stabilized rate is about 7%, which is what we've had for years until this year. And so we've put in 5% for non-recoverables. And a point on this is that the city of Winnipeg lacks the moral authority to change worldwide valuation standards. Appraisers, brokers, property managers, accountants we all have to apply non-recoverables because they're real, they exist, people have to pay them. When properties are sold, that you don't give your statement to someone and say, hey, forget about those non-recoverables, just calculate the NOI without them. That's not the way it works. They're a fact of life. And I'm thinking of an analogy of what if the government tomorrow told an engineer that what we've changed the rules on bridge strength now, we've decided that your arches that you're building don't have to be engineered that well anymore. We're changing the rule here. We're the government, we can do it. Of course, it'd be outrageous. This is what they're doing here, and I don't want to sit on the sidelines and say, and just accept it. You can't change the way the market works. You can't impose your own version of market because the Manitoba government passed a law called the Municipal Assessment Act that says you're supposed to use the market. Anyway, moving on. Structural reserve, we're using 25 cents a foot, and typically that's for roof replacement. So this is a very interesting example. So now we have somebody who spent money on a roof. And I just saw that number there, 50 to 60,000 for a new roof. So, you know, and I'm saying the allowance should be $2,500. So a roof lasts 20, 25 years. Hit that one on the head. That's what it's for. Because you can't charge a tenant for a new roof. That's a great example. For shortfall, we were very close to the assessment department. We're just using actuals, and it's typically that their short side on the assessment side is generally for the taxes that are underestimated. So our NOI does come out at about $10,000 less than the assessor, and that's because of those minor changes in those categories and the need for non-recoverable allocation. On that topic, and I never had this statement because I worked for the tenant. But I do note on the assessor's page 10 that the non-recoverables for this property are about $19,400. Because they've listed their income at $126,000, and the tenant pays utilities and taxes and does not pay for the recovery of leaves. So what would that be as a percent is 15%. That in itself is proof that we can't disregard non-recoverables. We capped it at 8.5%, and that's based on a few issues in terms of building itself. Roblin is not a good location for an office. Roblin is what you would call a service-style neighborhood, in that the only real commercial things you're going to see go up would service the local area. Like you wouldn't see regional things going up there, because the regional would be in a different part of the city. Because between Charleswood has two major physical barriers to being large and expanding. One is the river to the north, and to the south are the city limits. And unlike other parts of town which can expand, it can only go sideways. So what happens is that shopping centers don't want to be there, because when businesses try to figure out where they want to locate, they do really simple things. They take a census map and they put their preferred location and they draw a circle around it, 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers, look at the population inside there and decide, I don't want to be there, I want to be here. So what happens is that smaller services, say like a Shoppers Drug Mart, says, this works for us because we use a 3-kilometer ring. But a shopping center would use a 15-kilometer ring maybe. And so this wouldn't be a good location for them. And yes, I know they use these rings because our office does all the work for it when we're looking at locations. So on that respect, again, there's not much use for an office. There's some local offices, local service offices. The parking, we had done some calculations here, and the parking is on the low side, which gave it another problem as a clinic because of its location, that it wasn't the best. Now, looking at the picture on page, I've got the assessor's page 2, same picture we have. This is obviously during happier times. About 21 parking stalls. So code is 1 for every 750. And when you have to use the physical area of the building, not the rentable area on this. So that's, okay, parking's fine for office, but it's not fine for retail. That was our point, yes. Because for office, you can get away with 14 stalls, but on the retail side, you would need 40 stalls. So that's a limited usage. And as we said earlier, it's quite dated inside. It would need being redone. It's actually like going into one of somebody's hippie house in the 1970s with circles, inside walls that are feature walls that portholes in them, dated. So other than that, cap rates, this doesn't belong in any studies. It wouldn't make its way in because it's very low caliber. And just to show you our standards, which are similar in the industry on page 26, office. We only look to B offices, and you can see the bottom left corner on page 26 that this comes nowhere near being a quality building. So again, it's miscellaneous. And for comparables on page 38, we have a few. Downtown office at 8.5. There's a suburban office at 905 Waverly, which is 7.93. This is a superior quality to Stantec's office, and also a superior location. This is southwest Winnipeg, where businesses want to be. So this would be the lowest end of that, the cap rate. And other than that, there's some more downtown offices and some retail. We do have a retail strip on Robin at 7.81% on page 39. That one capped that low because it's anchored by a Royal Bank. So there's a covenant in there that, and it was the largest tenant and the dominant tenant. So that got more weight. Cap rate sales are not they're very biased. They're not the way the assessor has them, where people look at, they say, well, we look at the age of the building and the size, things like that. No, that's not how it works in the real world. The real world, people go, who's the tenant? Well, how much time is left on their lease? So if you say, well, the tenant's the Royal Bank, 10 years left, say, oh, I love that. That's a great investment. If they say that it's me, they go, yeah, I don't like that guy. He's going to skip out on the bill. But, those are the two ends of the spectrum. I wouldn't skip out on the bill, but you know what I'm saying, a local user. Now, the WHA is deemed to be a good tenant, but they were deemed to be a good tenant. But if you notice something happening right now is the provincial government is now in a public fight with someone where they're canceling leases. So that just started recently. And they're using legislative authority to do so. So they really dropped their rating. But ad valorem taxation assumes that all tenants are equal in terms of fair and cap rate. It's just not the truth. However, the only thing you can say that the link that brings us together is the quality of the building will bring you a better tenant who will give you a better covenant. This is poor quality. It's not going to attract the Royal Bank. It's not going to attract Microsoft or McDonald's or anybody like that. It's going to attract a local accounting firm or something of that effect. Not a good covenant. Anyway, so that's why we're at 8.75, and that's our value, $1,139,000. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Spacek, questions of the applicant?
Just a few, please, quickly. Start at rent. So you're using a $12 rent, and from my understanding, based on market on Boblin?
No, page 3, actual lease. Yeah, but you know what? I just noticed that we have a different square footage. Maybe we all do. We all do.
Yeah, a little off.
Yeah, so my number, but the point is, it's page 3, 121,152 per annum. Since we use that, we're okay. We're $150 off on the $130 off. Sorry, on the income. We could be higher. It's throwing in $1,000. Make it $1,140. $1,140. Changing the number here right now.
Okay, so page 10 of my brief, just to clarify with this lease in place, this lease is for $121,000. They're reporting $126,155. So I'm assuming there's at least a step up in place or something to make the total rental value in the 2017 income year. They reported $126,000, right?
Yeah, I see that.
So that would bring your rent up, correct? If you're using actuals.
That's $5,000. I haven't seen this, so this is new to me. And this was dated May 18. So our term is each of the 3 years. Each of the first 3. Yeah, you know what? I think you're right there, because the first one is a 3-year term. So yeah, you're right. Our income should be a touch higher, but
So that would bring the rent to around $12.49, correct?
is that what you?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
what I
50 cents a foot.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
right. So you would adjust your rent if that was the actual.
Yeah, that's
That's all I'm asking.
No, that's reasonable.
Okay.
We only had this from WHA.
Yeah, no problem. Next, I just want to speak to vacancy quickly. So you're using 6.6%. Our model is 5.5 for OFS. I've heard it being classified as a government building. It's a 2-story government building, and then because WRHA is leasing, you're saying possibly medical, or right? It's empty right now. We're thinking what could it be used for? But if you're looking at the actual vacancy charts you've listed, so page 6, just from my understanding from what you said here, if we go to page 6,
Right.
we have downtown and suburban. So we're obviously suburban. We have downtown suburban government. It's
Right.
0 across. So every year the vacancy is 0 in government buildings because they're often long-term leases. They occupy the whole space for the building, correct?
Or turn to page
Yes.
page 9,
Yes.
and there are the listing of those buildings.
Yes.
And yes, you're correct. Those are all long-term leases, and
Yes.
what they generally are built to suit, or there's an RFP, and it's going to be 20 years.
So okay, so we're not using government. We're ignoring the 0. We go down to medical. We're saying it's medical. We're at 3.8% in 17, and we're at 4.3% in 18. Correct?
Well, right. And the reason I'm not comfortable with medical is because it's super low sample size. And you took again a look at page 9. We have 7 properties and 55,000 square feet. So now our subject isn't even in there. Our subject would represent 18% of the total inventory if it were in there.
For which one? Can you just explain this?
Page
9?
9.
Yes, which
shows
one?
you the actual inventory that Johnson did. Now,
Yes. So you're using. Are you talking about the top of the page or the bottom?
the bottom.
So the bottom is the suburban office
Suburban
report.
yeah.
So are you using suburban C for this?
No, I'm using all suburban, because look, every single category here is too small to provide a fair sample, like, it's just not big enough.
Okay, so suburban A, 1.6%. Suburban B, 3.93%.
Yeah, but
Suburban C, 5.37%.
Oh, yeah.
And then suburban government, 0%, right? And then suburban medical is 3% if you do the math. It's not
Yeah.
on the page, but, so again, these are all lower than your stated 6%.
Well,
6%, correct? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, no, I'm using...
You're going above all the averages on your document page.
Yeah, and I'm actually happy, I like doing that because we can actually look at and qualify all of these numbers. And if someone came to me and said, look, I got 5 properties and I'm going to give you my vacancy rate, you laugh at them because you say, well, that's a sample size? This is not good enough, right?
Okay, perfect. That's just a quick question. And then now that you've seen, so you went over, you're using 8.75%. You've stated on your page 3 the parking. So for office, like this building is currently laid out as an office, correct? 2-story OFS?
Yeah.
And it's-
Well, I wouldn't use OFS because that
2-story office, 2-story office.
Yeah, that's
okay,
your
so 2 stories of office space,
Right.
10,000, you're doing the math, you're saying 13 stalls is required, we have at least 18, right? So we have enough parking for office.
For office.
But you're saying if it was changed to a medical clinic, a 2-story medical clinic, you would need more because of retail, correct?
Yeah.
That's just your
Well,
parking check.
yeah, exactly. If you had more people coming in the door, you're required to have more parking under code. So
Yes, absolutely, but it's laid out as a 2-story
Well,
office,
it's,
correct?
it's currently vacant. So
Yeah, it's vacant, but the layout,
the
have
parking
you been
ratio
to
is
this building? I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is it currently laid out as an office?
Yes.
Thank you. And just one last question. You're using 8.75%, and now that you've seen the sales questionnaire, you're putting no weight on it, I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah, I think it was, I haven't really looked into this, but again, it was sold surplus by the school division and we have a government tenant. So without, I mean, the reason people like the IAAO have standards, and we have the same standards in the appraisal institute too, which would be, don't use a sale like this unless you know an awful lot about it. You can answer all the questions, which means interview purchaser, interview seller, and anyone involved with the transaction.
Okay, so if the person fills out the questionnaire that bought it and fills it out, well, and puts that they're basing it on a 6% cap rate, you just off this page, you could say no weight on it.
Well, here's a real good way of determining that. So, who's qualified to pick a cap rate?
Well, I'm just wondering, this is what it's filled out, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I know.
Put weight on this.
Well,
That's
I
all
know
I'm
this
asking.
guy's not an appraiser.
Yeah.
And he's not an accountant because he's got no initials behind his name. So maybe we'll just go ask the guy in the street. Can we have your cap rate, please? I mean, there has to be. This is a bit of a personal thing with me, and it's not just with the assessment department. I absolutely can't stand people banding about the concept of cap rates. And you got guys that call me, so what's the cap today? What are we capping at? I'm like, no, that's not how you do a cap,
Again, just yes or no, would you put weight on this sales question? That's all I'm asking.
No,
Okay,
no.
there we go, that's it, that's all I was asking.
Oh, you mean we agreed?
I was asking if you would, that's all,
Oh, okay, good.
that's my question.
I thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Peich?
Many of my questions have been answered. I do have one in the properties you've put forward as comparables for the rent. I'm wondering why none of the properties that the assessor has put forward appear in your list. Assessor's properties found on page 6 of his submission.
Okay, well,
And the reason I asked the question is you spoke at length about the area, and it's not ideal for a number
Right.
of purposes, including McDonald's and Microsoft, and et cetera, but here we have some rent comparables.
oh, well, our Roblin rents, first of all, are all from strip malls. These are strips, and some of them are, there's a Gondola Pizza in there, and there's an MLA's office in there, and there's a variety of different users. It was more to get a picture of the market. Now, the idea of us ever sharing rents is probably, let's see, I blurred out things a little too quickly, but I was kind of laughing at it because, we don't share anything. The assessor gets their rents from Oh, I see there are some that,
Quite a few in Roblin.
yeah, they get theirs from their mailer. And we get ours, in the case of the ones we had in Roblin, we managed those properties. So the one in question, 4910 Roblin, is a semi-gross building. We know that because we have the statements and we managed it for a while. Or I was it was a different company, but anyway, we had that I was working for. That, so we went through them to look for the rents and make sure that we actually reported net amounts. And we don't enter them in the system and just give them to you. What we try to do with our rents is keep them clean. Rents are impacted negatively and positively by sometimes on the negative sense they can be shown lower because there's inducements to get in. So we don't use those. Sometimes they can be higher because landlords like to lend money to tenants because their rate of return is better than they're getting at the bank, and they can use it for their tenant improvements, and they amortize it into the lease. And also, the other reason they're shown higher is when they are semi-gross, they're not fully recoverable. And now it's all coming back to me in 4910. It's a base year building. That's what the difference is. Base year means that you move in, they say, here's your rent. It's based on the year 2015. Taxes and utilities, anything above there, you're paying us the difference. And that's why they're coming in higher. So, but like I said, these all come from our managed sites, so I think our quality of our data is higher scrutiny.
Great, thank you. No other questions?
Thank you. And Mr. Sawatsky?
Yes, you said the quality of this building was not very good.
That's correct.
It was dated, yet based on the information you provided, or someone did, the owner has spent 50 to 60K on a new roof.
Well, I don't dispute that the roof has been done. We couldn't actually get in it when we went into the specs. We actually looked through all the windows into all the offices, and it was very dated. It looked like it was original, no money had ever been spent on it. And things like windows, you couldn't see through half the windows because the seals had blown. I mentioned the interior design about someone had styled it, vintage 1973. There was shag rug in parts of it. We used to have that in the 70s
Do
too.
you know when the roof was fixed?
No, this is the first I've seen, which is from here. So I imagine that was an expense after purchase.
Well, that information is dated 2016.
Yeah, so it would have been post 2016. Or, well, it says here,
right?
Do you intend to make major repairs? And he said, yes, new roof. So actually, I guess I couldn't confirm it was done. Our pictures, let me look at the picture. It looks good. I don't have a zoom in either on this, but from a distance, the roof looks in pretty good shape. There's no discoloration. You look at some of the neighboring buildings, like the one immediately west of it, you see the discoloration from low spots, water buildup.
So
I think it looks like it was done.
So it can't be too bad if someone's spending that kind of money on fixing a roof.
Or it was so bad that they had to fix it because it was leaking.
Now, my other question is the cap rate. Now, what factors caused you to give it a 8.75?
As I mentioned, it's you have primary, secondary, and tertiary. It's a tertiary market. So you're not attracting a good user. Like, move the building onto Portage Avenue or Pembina Highway, and you're moving to a better market because your traffic count tripled or quadrupled. So not only could you potentially have for an office, but you would have the ability to have, if you wanted to, some retail space in there that could cater to impulse users. The traffic on Roblin, population density is low, so you're getting that, you're not attracting it. On Roblin, you can probably with one hand count the number of national tenants on the street, because that's not where they're going. So pick any major chain who's got 10 plus locations in the city, and they're going to go, I think 2 in Portage, 1 in Regent, a couple in Pembina, Phillips, yeah, Maine, yeah, way out in North Maine maybe, and then they think Roblin, no, I don't want to be there. And it's proof of it is I'm just trying to think of what's on the strip in that point that's national.
That's the main factor?
There's a subway.
Yeah, that's
Well, it shows you that the nationals don't want it.
Any other factors?
Well, the age, the 2-story setup. Your rent will be generated from your main floor. The second floor, they're usually building, they figure they're going to be helpers, and sometimes they're just a total waste of money. And an example of that is one of the cap rate ones I had listed on page 38, which is 819 Sargent. Now, aside from its location issues, the other problem with this is the second floor was perpetually, chronically vacant. And when they did put people in there, they were getting $4 and $5 rents. And that's true of virtually any second floor office, even on Portage Avenue, where we had managed several properties. The second floor tenants would be half of the first floor tenants. I bet you there's even a comparable I cited in here I can show you on second floors with there's a our table is a mess. 1483 Pembina, which is on our table on page 4, and it's not very well organized, but the rents on that go. It's a bi-level, so the bottom floor is the cheapest, it's basement, and then the first floor. So the basement is about $7, the main floor is about $9, and the upper floors are between $7.50 and $8. So that's a detriment in terms. Now, at some point though, it just becomes a value added because you already have the land. So the issue here is we don't treat all 10,000 square feet the same. This should actually probably indicate 5,000 square feet at $14 and 5,000 square feet at $10. That's if you were splitting it up, something like that. So you're very little interest on second floor, and what tends to happen, and I have a couple of clients who have buildings with second floors in Portage, and so it's easy to rent the first floor. You can get retail or even a good office use, and the second floor becomes a little warren of small offices.
I get the point. Thank you. One other question. I noticed somewhere there was an assessment of this property in 2018 at $1,449,000. Any comments on that?
Yes. Consent judgment. This is a WHA building. In 2016, we first received the contract, and we went after the liability to taxation on all of their sites. And this one was vacant, so liability was never going to be an issue, and we filed an appeal, and we ended up reaching an agreement with the city, which was ratified by the courts as a consent judgment, which said as of 2018, the city agrees the following properties are exempt from taxation for school or in full. And here's the list. The owner agrees to drop all outstanding appeals for value. So we didn't pursue it. Yeah, it was interesting, and and so the consent judgment, of course, only covered that year. So now with 2020, this is where we're going back to clean up the value issues.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Newfield, you are appealing 3 points.
Yeah, and that's because I didn't have an answer to see if they'd repurposed it yet. And I'm going to ask you to just confirm the other 2 points if you can. I just don't know what their exact plans are. They told us that, we're changing. There was a clinic being planned for, they were going to take one of the outpatient services at Salvation Grace, to this, and then they had a change of heart because now they're thinking of maybe building on the Grace site instead, just to have more product offered in a more dense location instead of all over the city. It's a little more economical to operate that way. They have so many duplication of services, like, I don't know about you, but urgent care, quick care, access center, walk-in clinic, I think they're all the same thing.
All right.
It's a 3-hour wait, and there you go.
All right.
I changed my number, by the way.
Yes.
The assessor pointed out, I increased my rent to the amount stated on the questionnaire, and my resulting value is $1,190,850, rounded to $1,191,000.
Mr. Spacek, any questions or submission?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Newfield?
So I've talked enough.
All right. Leave it with this. Thank you for your presentation and results very soon. And Mr. Spacek, thank you very kindly.
Thank you.